But I'm going to give, if you're all right with this, I'm going to give a full timeline starting from the beginning of how Ruby Ridge took place.
Okay.
Are you down? Is this too much? Am I coming in too hot?
No, you're good. I just had no idea about that. But for one, this is not a historical fucking podcast. We're going to come on here and be wrong about a bunch of shit and then just come back next week and be wrong again.
But I do like the argument that that's cool. It's cool to me that, they came to me like pretty fired up over something I said. It was a cool exchange. But now I'm fired up, and there's a $50 bet, which the bet's a whole nother thing of me getting fired up about. Because last night I go off on Vince about all this shit, and he's like, "Well, that's not what I was arguing." I was like, "Yes, it fucking is what you were arguing." Like, and he's like, "No, that wasn't the bet." And I'm like, "Yes, it fucking was the bet." So,
okay,
sorry, I'm up in arms about this thing.
Well, you guys care a lot more than me, so you go do your thing.
Okay, so here's the full time. It should take me under 5 minutes to get through this whole thing. So Randy Weaver was born in Iowa. D.P. Ridge's family, small town, graduated in 1966, Jefferson, Iowa. During this time, there's a lot of accounts of him hanging out with black people. So, and everyone says he enjoyed everyone. There was, from his early life, there wasn't much racism going on. So it's funny what happens later in life. But so then 1968, he joined the Army. He never went to Vietnam. He stayed stateside. He was just, some people had to stay stateside. He was a sharpshooter with an M16, a .45 handgun. Yeah, never went to Vietnam. There is a weird, I didn't put this really in the notes, but there was a weird thing that happened when he was in the Army, which is just funny how it fits into the story. Is when he was in the Army, there was like a drug bust that went down that he like snitched, or he was like somehow part of it, but he didn't have the drugs, but he saw what was going on, and the way they reprimanded people he didn't agree with. He felt like justice wasn't served properly, and so he went to like a superior officer and bitched about it. He's just like, why isn't anything happening because of the drugs on base? And the sergeant essentially said, fuck off, like, mind your own business, and like there's reports of that, like, to where he got super pissed off, and he was like, quote unquote, calling all these Marine or Army dudes bullshit patriots. So like, this is when, this is, from a lot of accounts, this is when the slippery slope like starts. He's like looking, and this is like the same thing with like the Oklahoma City bombing dude. Like, they get in the military and then they're just like, these guys aren't even fucking patriots. You know what I mean? Like, they're bullshit patriots. So anyways, he was honorably discharged from the Army. Then he got into, funny enough, he got into criminal justice. He was like looking at becoming an FBI agent or a CIA agent at this time. So, and he ended up dropping out. He couldn't go through, I think it was payments or whatever, couldn't go through with it. But just funny that he was going to get into that. Right. Right after that, he got super into Amway. You know what Amway is?
God.
Yeah, got super into Amway. Amway's American Way, I believe, is just a short term. But yeah, they sell healthcare, beauty products, blah, blah, blah. It's all bullshit. It's a pyramid scheme. It's like, if you ever had friends that were into Cutco or so, it's just bullshit companies that are pyramid schemes, and people get super fucking into them, and they're fucking retarded. So after, so he's already kind of weird. I don't know if I didn't say anything about Vicky. Anyways, I'll just keep going. Then he got into John Deere. And he worked at John Deere for a good while, and supposedly he was making really good money at John Deere. Had multiple cars. They were killing it. Bought a house. He was like in his late 20s, owned a house, owned multiple cars, started a family with Vicky Jordanson.
In Iowa?
In Iowa, yeah. Fucking killing it. Supposedly doing really well. Then, like all fucking weird conspiracy theorists, fucking anti-Zionist people, starts getting into gold and silver. Starts like, after the Amway thing, his next like thing is gold and silver. Fucking the dollar's gonna collapse. They fucking have been saying this for 40 years. And this is another thing that irritates me. The fucking blah 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 blah. something I wanted to point out, like, because this irritates me, people that get super. I'm not saying gold and silver isn't a good investment or whatever, but in 1973, like, if you look this up, in 1973, if you had invested $1,000 in the Dow Jones, like, so betting on the economy of America, if you had put $1,000 into it, now you'd have $21,000. If you had done the same thing with gold, if you put $1,000 in gold in 1973, you'd have $3,000. So just betting on the economy of America is a fucking 5 times better than betting on gold. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying this fucking anti-dollar bullshit is just dumb. Like that it's not backed by gold.
The thing to do is diversify. You do like 10% in gold, and then
totally. But I'm just saying, like, they were talking about this in the 70s. It's fucking 50 years later, and still we're fine. The dollar's fine. Like, fucking goddamn it. So then after that, they started his like religious shit started getting deeper and deeper. He got really into doomsday shit and into the Bible. In 1978, he got into a book called The Late Great Planet Earth by Hal Lindsey. And this is a major book fucking about doomsday. And this piece of shit, Hal Lindsey, like every 5 years has released a book about how the world's about to end, and keeps getting away with it, keeps having followers to this fucking day. The guy's still alive. He started writing about this 50 years ago, about how the world's going to end. Hasn't fucking ended. And it's all just like religious, anti-Jewish bullshit. The Zionist one world government fucking, I hate all of it. Anyway, so they get super into that. Around this time, Vicky and Randy both start having visions. Like, they get super into God, and they start having, they're having visions of the end of times. Like, there's one, I don't have it written in here, but there's like one famous one where she has a vision where, and I'm pretty sure they're still in Iowa when she has this vision, that they're out in the middle of the woods and they all die on top of this hilltop. And like, so it's like this eerie little vision she has of, and it's like, is it really a vision, or is it you're fucking setting yourself up for what's gonna, you know what I mean? You're putting into motion what's gonna happen to you later in time.
Well, yeah.
So then, they become literalist, Bible literalist. So they take everything in the Bible 100%. Every stitch of the Bible is 100%. So that's no mixed fabrics, no mixed fields of seed, no beard trimming, fucking literalist. Like fucking the crazy of the crazy Bible people. Like fucking really? So they get super into that. They're like holding meetings at their house in Iowa, fucking, doing like family home evenings with, people coming in. They all read Bible verses and shit like that together. So then in the early 80s, they make the move to Ruby Ridge. I'm not exactly what sure. It's 81, 82 or something like that. Then he started hanging out with, going to white supremacist meetings in Hayden, Idaho. So then to get into like a little bit to touch on the white supremacist shit. In the 1960s, there was 3 disciples that came, like 3 new disciples of a new group of Christian identity leaders. I mean, there was more than that, but there's like 3 main ones. They spawned because the original one in like the 50s and 60s was this guy named Wesley Swift. He was a popular author of, white supremacist shit. And then he was the kind of the original author in this shit. And I mean, you could do a whole fucking podcast on that guy, but you wrote a bunch of books. But then like after him, there was like 3 main guys that formed, James K. Warner, William Potter Gale, and Richard Butler. So, and they all like kind of moved, they were all like in different parts of the country, but Richard Butler was in Hayden Lake, Idaho. Jesus. But he was a very famous white supremacist, like, dude, it isn't just the Randy Weaver thing that made him famous. He was famous in his own right. Like, this guy was no joke. He was one of the top dogs. So anyways, in the mid 80s, they take in Kevin Harris. He becomes like a family friend, not really like adopted. I believe he was already an adult at this time, but then they take in Kevin Harris, who is going to play a part later in the story. Now we'll get more into like dates. So then January 1985, he has a dispute with a neighbor up on Ruby Ridge. I can't remember exactly what the dispute was about. Again, I took really quick notes on all this, but he has a dispute with a guy named Terry Kinnison. And Terry Kinnison informs the FBI that Randy has said that he's going to kill the president, kill the governor, blah, 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 do all this stuff. And then so way before any of the Ruby Ridge shit, before the gun thing, there's already an investigation into Randy Weaver. The Secret Service interrogate Randy about this whole thing, and but it kind of just blows away. There's nothing solid here. He just said he's going to kill the president. But then Randy, he writes a letter to the governor right after the Secret Service interrogate him. He fucking writes a letter to the governor saying like how he's going to have to defend himself against the tyrannical government. Then he also writes a letter to the president of the United States, writing like essentially apologizing, saying that he was going to kill him. Just fucking these people are fucking weird. Like they're weird fucking people. I didn't write that down. I don't know. So it would have been 1985. So whoever was president in 85. Okay. I'll let you look that up. So then, he's gone to multiple white supremacist meetings with his family. Like he's taken his wife and his kids. At this time, it would have been 2 daughters and son. So then he meets a guy named Kenneth Friedley at one of these meetings, who's an undercover ATF agent who's has infiltrated the white supremacist shack in Hayden Lake. He meets Randy in the mid 80s. July 1989, Randy invites him to his house to discuss fighting Zod, the Zionist organized government. So he's trying to get this ATF agent like involved in this anti-Jewish bullshit. So then in October 11th, 1989, they meet at a restaurant in Sandpoint to discuss buying weapons to fight Zod. Friedley wanted machine guns. Obviously, like he's an ATF agent. He's trying to get, the best, he's trying to frame him. So he's asking him for machine guns. Randy says he couldn't get machine guns, but he said he could get shotguns. So he offered to sell 2 shotguns, sawed-off shotguns, for $700, which is illegal. Not only the sawed-off part, but it's also illegal. Like these are, they're doing it without, it's all under the table, which is illegal too. So this is all where this starts. Is he sells him 2 fucking shotguns, and it's all legal. It's illegal because it's sawed off, and it's illegal because it's under the table.
Really? Are you sure?
Dude, I was a little fucking, this is right here. I had the same issue you did because I thought it was fine to have unregistered weapons. The writing of it says that because he gets charged with 2 counts. I have it written some later in the notes. I have the charges he got.
Off, I'm sure, is illegal, but as far as I'm concerned, private sale in Idaho is still legal.
I know. I read the same thing when I was writing these notes. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I thought that was fine because I had an unregistered gun. My parents bought me an unregistered gun when I was a kid. Like it was one of my birthday presents.
But the sawed-off thing, I'll definitely give you.
So either way, I mean, you could argue that, but so right after the sale of the guns, he starts thinking he's an informant. He starts realizing this guy works, is not legit. He accuses the guy of being a cop. And then blah, blah, blah. May 21st, 1990, ATF agent Herbert Barley files a case against the Klan. So this is in Boise. Files a case. This is just kind of a side note. This is like when it's just shit starts rolling. The ball starts rolling. That's May 21st, 1990.
So when you say he's going to white supremacist meetings in Hayden, is that a part of the Ku Klux Klan?
No. Well, no, they're not Ku Klux Klan. This is an Aryan Nations movement. This is more like a religious. These people were deeply religious, like, and there's parts of the Bible that can be interpreted as. I didn't write any of it down, but there's passages of like, essentially suggesting that some races are like beast of the field, or it's like some wording like that. And so these people like take that and they're like, these are Jews and blacks. These are beasts of the field. They're subhuman, blah, blah. And then whatever, and yeah, blah, 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 blah. So ATF agent Herbert Burley, May 1st, 1990, files a case against the Klan. And in this case, he suggests they arrest Randy. They want like, Randy is, they've already had him on the 2 counts of gun shit. So he's like, they're figuring out what they want to do with him. Do they want to arrest him? Well, he's not that big of a deal. So what they really want to do is turn him into an informant. So, 2 ATF agents, Barley and Steve Gunderson, approach Randy in Sandpoint and try to turn him informant. So this happens. They approach him in Sandpoint and ask him to be an informant. Randy says, "I won't be a snitch." He then notifies Butler. So then goes back to the compound and says the ATF is, looking into you. They're trying to turn me into an informant. December 13th, 1990, they indict Randy for manufacturing and possessing unregistered firearms. So that's the charge he got in Idaho. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I felt the same thing, but that's what I got.
Yeah, that's the charge.
January 17th, 1991, ATF agents posed as stranded motorists arrest Randy at gunpoint on a weapons charge. So they're like pulled over on the side of the road, hey, help. Randy fucking goes to help him. They pull out guns and arrest him. He quote says during this time, "Nice trick. You'll never do that again," to the ATF agents. January 18th, 1991, he's arraigned in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. They release him on a $10,000 bond, directs him to appear in court to start trial in February 1991. So that right here in this deal, this is where Vince throws a fucking big old argument about right here. There was a mistake. Right here, there's a massive mistake there's a change in date from when there's a change of date when he's supposed to appear in court. And they're saying that blah, blah, blah. But as you'll find later, he knows he's supposed to be in court because he writes, we'll keep going because there is an issue here, though. It is valid to point out that they say February and it's supposed to be March or something like that. I should have done a little bit better notes at this point. But January 21st, he receives a letter that it's been moved to March 20th. So there's the February to March. There's a fuck up right there. And some people are saying he never received the letter saying that the date had changed there. But on February 7th, U.S. Attorney's Office in Boise received 2 letters from Vicky dated January 21st and February 3rd, addressed to the Queen of Babylon. So this is in response to the 2 letters. So anyone arguing that they don't know what the court date is, that's wrong. They wrote letters back to the governor, obviously that letter's bananas, the Queen of Babylon, obviously ranting that this is all bullshit. So there was an error in dates. It's not for sure if he knew the correct dates, but given the 2 letters she wrote, it really seems like they knew the right dates. So then there was a bench warrant was issued on February 20th because he never showed up for court. Right. March 5th, 2 deputies contact Bill and Judy Ryder, which are friend of the Weavers. And the couple, and so they come in contact with them. They're trying to get a hold of the Weavers. Everyone knows what's about to happen. You know what I mean? They know that that he's gonna flip them off and get off my property. Like the ATF already knows all this shit. So they contact friends, and they're trying to get him to come in, peacefully. The couple gives the U.S. Marshals a letter from the Weavers saying, "We will not obey your lawless government," signed by the Weavers. So they know what's happening at this point. They fucking know what's happening. March 14th, 1991, U.S. District Courts indicts them and this is the moment that starts an 18-month sit-in. 18 months. This is when it all starts. They go fucking hide themselves up in the mountains. So then in June and July of 1991, SOG, Special Operations Group, this is U.S. Marshals, they start conducting surveillance. Not like hardcore surveillance but they start gathering intel. They're not like on the mountain yet. They're just kind of in and out, just, trying to figure out what's going on, what they're up against. They report back as Randy Weaver is extremely dangerous and suicidal. July 19th, 91, they meet Rodney Wiley, who's another family friend of the Weavers. They ask him to convince Randy and his wife to surrender. The next day, he reports back, Randy Wiley reports back to the U.S. Marshals, we will never surrender because, he will never surrender. He fears his rights will be violated. So, yeah. October 9th, they ask another family friend to ask them to surrender. So now they've how much are they trying here? You know what I mean? They've contacted 3 family friends. You know what I mean? Like, they're...
What's preventing just walking up and knocking on the door? They're just scared of him?
They know he's armed. They know what's going. You know what I mean? They know what's happening. Like, he's armed and he's telling them to fuck off. Like, they end up going up to the property, like, before the whole standoff goes down. October 21st, Vicky gives birth to Alashiba. So they're in the middle of their hideout right now. They name their daughter Alashiba.
It's illegal.
So March 4th, 6 months later, SOG so this is 6 months after all this went down. SOG drives up to the property to meet Randy, and they're met with Randy at the foot of his property, and he tells him with a shotgun in hand and says, "Get the fuck off my property." He just told U.S. Marshals to get the fuck off my property. Like, you don't get to do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's like fucking Jesus Christ. Like, what do you think is going to happen when you're telling U.S. Marshals 6 months into a sit-in, get the fuck off my property? Like, this guy's living in La La Land.
I see what you're saying. Like, you shouldn't do that. You're allowed to, but it's like you're allowed to poke a bear.
Yeah, but
the bears.
We're gonna keep going after this, but I mean, with it's so convenient for like Waco, this show, to just show the last week of this shit going on and like, oh, this poor guy, government comes in. No, the government just didn't come in willy-nilly and fucking hold these people hostage. Like, even though that charge isn't that crazy, he still broke the fucking law. You don't get to go get a DUI and then tell everyone, fuck off. You know what I mean? I don't accept your DUI. No, you have to deal with it. You know what I mean? We all have to deal with laws. Like, you can think all you want that you want to live in some anarchist state. We don't live in an anarchist state. Fuck you. You know what I mean? You have to abide by the laws. If you don't think they're just, then go to court and fight it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole, you can do that. Like,
I see what you're saying. You don't believe in paying taxes and you don't pay them, you got to accept the consequences. This goes exactly into our Ask Reddit question of the day, but keep going.
Okay. Sorry, guys. This is so in-depth. I mean, I wanted to be as detailed as possible, like, because I was getting shit on for not being detailed. So now I'm coming out full guns, like, as detailed as I can get. Yeah. March 8th, 1992, the Spokesman Review in Spokane, Washington releases the story. But I didn't write it down. I don't know if it was front page or not, but they released the story that there's a sit-in going on up in North Idaho.
This whole thing with Idaho looks so bad. I fucking hate that.
The 27th, 1992, March, a 3-phase operational plan is developed to safely arrest Randy with no deaths. This operation is called Northern Exposure. So they're going to extreme lengths to fucking end this peacefully.
Way too extreme.
Like, how much tax dollars have been spent already on this? Like, fuck this guy. So phase 1 is carried out April 2nd to the 12th, which is essentially just another intel gathering, just basic intel gathering. Phase 2 is setting up cameras. So now they go up on the hill and they start setting up cameras all over the place. May 5th, Randy saw on camera destroying one of the cameras. So he knows what's going. He knows they're setting up cameras. There's a side plan being like this what I'm about to say, this goes to show like how far they're going to try to like deal with this. Is there's another plan that gets totally scrapped, but they flirt with the idea. Is they're about ready to buy a house next door to the Reavers and put a female and male ATF agent in, posed as man and wife, to try to just go live up on the mountain and then, you know, try to become friends with them and then arrest them that way. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But that plan gets scrapped. August 21st, 1992 at 4:30 a.m. 2-3. So they're already going up and doing like armed guys are going up doing surveillance up on, you know, this has been happening for a while. But on August 21st, 1992 at 4:30 a.m. They leave. These guys are staying up on Schweitzer Mountain, actually, the SOG, these special forces dudes or whatever. So they leave at 4:30. They leave Schweitzer Mountain. They drive up to Ruby Ridge. They start their surveillance at I didn't write it down, but it was like at whatever 6 in the morning or something like that. At 10 a.m., the dog one of the Randy Weaver's dogs starts chasing one of the dudes from the team. So this is when shit really goes down. And this is, you can get a lot of details here. For the police wrote, the guy that this all happened to, one of the team members, there is a lot of information here. I really skimmed down. I didn't want to get this crazy detailed. I just grabbed the main points. But a dog chases the dude. There's his Randy Weaver's 14-year-old son is behind the dog, like chasing, now running, like sees the dog is chasing someone. He starts chasing the dog, like to see what's going on. And then it's a classic, you know, he said, she said, who fired first. But there's a gunfight, a massive gunfight that breaks out right there. Marshall Deegan and Sammy Weaver both die. So now a fucking federal agent and the 14-year-old son are both dead. In a massive firefight. So what's up?
And the dog too.
I didn't write that down. I'm pretty sure they killed the dog. Yeah. Within one day, now the FBI gets involved because now fucking Marshall has just been killed. You know what I mean? Like, Randy Weaver, on that day, the next day, Randy Weaver is charged with the murder of a U.S. Marshal. So now that
charged with the murder of the kid.
What
about them being charged with the murder of a?
I mean, and that's one of the main arguments. Like, to this day, Randy Weaver has. He's all pissed. No federal dude. I mean, I guess I kind of get that. But at this point, you're sending your 14-year-old son armed to go do patrol on your property. And he dies. You don't get to fucking blow his eye. Like, fuck, you know, you put your family in this situation. You're a piece of shit. If I did that with, you know, I imagine being a father and doing that to your kids. You are a fucking piece of shit. And this whole idea that he's in any way a victim, that any of the, you know, fuck that. Fuck you for thinking that. You're a piece of shit, and you're being naive to okay.
But you can't, like, if you were to have like a scoreboard of well, I guess like how many points the government gets and how many points Randy Weaver gets, like the government has strikes against them in this situation. You know what I mean?
Yes. Okay. You know, I'm glad you stopped me here, because last night I was gonna write something in here and I didn't. But this is okay.
People didn't
like. Okay. Do you remember the story? There was a story going around a little bit ago. There's like it was a famous Facebook footage of this black lady and this black dude who were like on a news camera, and they're bitching about their brother who went and robbed a store, and then the clerk behind the counter shot their brother, and they're like, how dare they shot this guy? You know, he was only doing an armed robbery. And you know what's convenient is all the same fucking people that would argue this point, that this was unjust, are the same fucking people that as soon as, you know, I'm not all about this whole racist narrative, but it's fucking funny to me how when that story came out, all the fucking same people that would argue me on this are like, well, you fucking go, if this black dude comes in and fucking armed robbery and you don't think you're going to get shot, like, fuck that. You know what I mean? Oh, but you know what I mean? It's like picking and choosing when you're allowed to fuck with the law. You know what I mean? Like, no, fuck off. You go in a store with a gun, robbery, and you get killed, tough shit. I'm all about that. But also, when U.S. Marshals are fucking knocking at your door for 18 months and then shit goes down and there's collateral damage, you do not get to play fucking the victim at all. You're a fucking piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like,
I see what you're saying. I agree. And I guess what? I agree with you.
there is no scoreboard. There doesn't get to be a scoreboard. You don't get to get pulled over by a cop and push him. You know what I mean? And then he fucking throws you on the ground and breaks your nose, and you get to be like, well, I only pushed you. You know what I mean? You don't get to do that to a cop.
Like let's say a cop pulls me over and I have drugs on me. Does he get to shoot me and kill me? No. But I agree that if you are rolling around with, drugs, or you're selling sawed-off shotguns in restaurants at Sandpoint, the consequences are coming. They're coming whether you like it or not. And you don't get to be like, I was a victim. I was meeting people in restaurants to sell shotguns to them. Like, I don't know. And you shouldn't have your kid doing patrol on your property. I agree with that. Like, you have gone completely off the deep edge at that point. The train is off the tracks, and it's headed for disaster. But if I'm doing patrol on my property at 6 a.m. and my dog is chasing some guy that's wearing all black and I see that he has a gun, boom.
No, absolutely. But in that case, absolutely. But if 18 months of you knowing there might be police on your property and you shoot that guy, a little bit different of a fucking story. You know what I mean?
The best way is just to handle it. Just go
Go to court. Go to court. The worst he could, the original charge, the worst charge could have been 18 months in jail. So, but even that's the worst it could have been. If he would have went to court, guaranteed that wouldn't have been max. So at most he would have done a year. And even then, if he felt like he was so fucking justified, go to court and explain why it's so unjust, how unjust the government is being in this situation. Go argue it. Go change the fucking law. Don't just be a crybaby bitch. You know what I mean? And then, something else I didn't put in my notes, but the whole reason, like, going back an episode, the whole reason, like, I kind of am throwing, like, the killdozer thing in. I guess, the killdozers, I feel like it's relative. But then also in this time, the 90s was fucking bananas. Like, the Waco and Randy Weaver get the most attention. But during the 90s, domestic terrorism was fucking out of control. It was all over. There is countless stories of shit like this going on. Just this is the poster child of this.
I Googled this after watching Waco. I Googled when was Ruby Ridge, when was Waco, and when was the Unabomber arrested.
Uh-huh.
And the Unabomber was arrested in 96. Of course, he had been out for like 15 years, but he was arrested in 96 in Montana. Not too far away from fucking Ruby Ridge.
Yeah. So, and I mean that was directly connected. He said the whole reason he did it was because of those two things. You know what I mean? Like, or wait, no. Dude, I always confuse the Unabomber and fucking the Unabomber's I totally confused that. I was thinking I was thinking the Oklahoma City bombings. I don't know why.
It's about the Unabomber actually, but that was 96. And no, there was a thing where he spoke out big time against the government, how they handled Waco. The Unabomber did.
Okay, I was confused. I was thinking the Oklahoma City bombing. I always fucking do that. I hear Unabomber and my brain just goes to Oklahoma City bombings. What's that guy's name?
Ted Kaczynski.
Is that the guy's name? Ted Kaczynski?
Yeah. I just watched there's a whole season of it on Netflix, and then there's a huge documentary as well. I just watched bulk and all of them.
But then not only that, there was like, I've watched the whole other thing right before they also tied into, there was right before Ruby Ridge, there was a deal in Seattle where there was, I think 2 guys that had a full on shootout with automatic weapons. There was the bank robbery in California. fucking, where they had a bunch of automatic weapons. There was during the early 90s. Jesus Christ. During the early 90s, there was massive amounts of, and that's what everything built up to this. Like that's why the FBI was getting involved, is because, they were all these deaths. Cops were dying all over the place because of white supremacist movements, directly linked to the one in Hayden, the shootout in Seattle. I should have fucking looked that up, but that was directly linked to Richard Butler. Like he was helping keep these guys safe and running guns.
That's kind of crazy that like Ruby Ridge was 92, Waco was 93, Unabomber was arrested in 96. I don't remember when all the other stuff happened, and then Columbine's 1999.
Yeah, the 90s was a bananas time, and there was a lot of other stuff that just kind of has lost momentum over the years, like the one in Seattle, the bank robbery. When I was listening to this whole deal, fucking the guy was talking about dude, he listed off like 10 different instances where white supremacist movements had done they were robbing banks, they were stealing guns, they were killing cops.
That's kind of crazy that all those things happen, and then Columbine wraps it up in 1999 to end the 90s. That's probably why they fucking Patriot acted at us in 2001. But
and I think it's funny. A lot of people like forget. I mean, pretty much anyone younger than us doesn't even remember the 90s. You know what I mean? Like, And anyways, let me get through this real quick. We're almost done with my rant. So back to right after the shootout, fucking the next day, the FBI gets involved. Randy is charged with the murder of a U.S. Marshal. From that point on, rules of engagement have changed, and they stated that anyone who is armed, shoot to kill. So from that, as soon as a fucking U.S. Marshal died, they're fucking done fucking around. Like, now, if you have a gun in your hand, you're gonna die. The next day, when the FBI gets there, they're fucking there to kill. You know what I mean? They're not doing surveillance anymore. They're there to kill people. Randy's shot in the armpit. Harris is shot, almost fatally. They're in a guest house, Randy and Harris, and then they make their way back to the main house, wounded. And Vicky opens the door to greet them as they come in, and she's holding the baby, and a sniper puts a bullet through her head, kills Vicky right there. Supposedly, no one knew that she was killed. The officer didn't know that she had died yet.
Yeah, you're dumb. Fucking fuck you.
Yeah, and then they drag everyone in the house, and then that's when then it's pretty much a real sit-in. They've surrounded the fucking house. They're there to now they're not doing patrols of the property anymore, because now Kevin Harris is slowly dying. Randy, I guess, is fine from the armpit wound, but I mean, he's wounded. Vicky's dead. So now it's just 3 daughters. One of them is a newborn baby, and 3 daughters and him, and then Kevin Harris. So that essentially, that's where I died out. And then August 31st is when they surrender. I could have gone more in that small amount of time frame. Netflix was right about the guy that came up to the property and fucking the Waco show, came up and did the interrogating. Supposedly that guy ran for president. And he was like pretty popular in Idaho, because he was like, his slogan was like guns, no gun. I don't know. He had this famous slogan that was going around in the 90s he was super famous on the right side, like hardcore right wingers. So August 31st. Sorry.
Vince is pissed at you right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
August 31st, they surrender. And that's pretty much where I wrapped up. The only thing I wrote after that is they actually award them 3 point. They sue him for some ridiculous amount. The Weavers sue the state or the FBI or whatever for a ridiculous amount. They end up settling for $3.1 million. All 3 daughters got $1 million apiece, and Randy got $100,000. And then he ended up moving to, I think he did 18 months in jail or something like that. And then and then was released and moved to Montana. And then he kind of got out of the limelight, stopped doing interviews and shit like that.
Wow.
And I think I'm pretty sure he's still alive.
Yeah, he is. I looked it up. That is crazy.
So I don't know about the argument. I feel like Vince fucking flip-flopped me on this argument. When we were originally arguing, he was saying he was saying that they didn't know that the police were coming. You know what I mean? Like it was just bam bam and they were caught. You know, kind of the whole fucking story that I'm arguing is this, like, they didn't even know what was going on and police just show up and start fucking shooting people. And then the argument turned into, like, how much time was there? And I was like, dude, it was way more than a month. When I was originally arguing, I'd forgotten the amount of time. And then now I'm saying there was 18 months and he knew from day one what was fucking going down and refused to. Yeah. And then last night we're arguing and he's like, no, that's not what I was arguing. I was arguing that there was a change date error. And it's like, that is not what you fucking said. I'm very upset with Vince right now. Very upset with Vince.
Okay, well, so wait, what was the $50 bet about?
That's what I'm saying. What I was just saying is now we're arguing over what the bet was about. I fucking hate when this shit happens. And I feel like people duke me into this shit all the time. When they're wrong, then they, like, every bet I need to fucking record exactly the fucking stipulations. Because then a few days go past and you prove them wrong and they're like, no. That is not what I was fucking saying. Like, fucking, you fucking cunt.
Well, it was a bunch of drunk people on fucking Xbox Live at 2 a.m. arguing about Randy Weaver. I know exactly. Super ass drunks. But I don't know, man. It's like as time goes on, it's just, if it was just Randy Weaver in a cabin by himself, I don't think there'd be a lot of mercy. But the fact that it's a family with daughters and the wife gets shot, then it turns into this huge sensation that will never, ever, ever be forgotten. You know, it won't ever be forgotten. It's not just one nutcase like the Unabomber. It's a fucking, you shot the wife, you stupid fucking sniper. You don't shoot unless you have a clear shot. You don't shoot when he's like ducking into the door. Like, as he runs from one house to another, when he opens the door and he's like ducking inside, then you don't go boom and like try to sneak it in. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, then I would like relate it to like military. You know what I mean? Like, what if you were in the military and you're like in Vietnam or something like that? Like, my dad talks about this shit all the time in Vietnam. He's like, people like to paint the, us killing like kids and shit like that. But he's like, dude, after so many times of a kid like walking up to you and fucking having a bomb strapped to him or having a gun or something like that, like, fucking, you lose all sympathy for killing kids and women. You know what I mean? Like, you lose sympathy for you really separate enemy friend. You know what I mean? And it's like, you can't look, and that is super fucked up. But it's like, I feel the same thing is like, once the FBI got involved in these snipers and they are told shoot to fucking kill, like, yeah, it sucks. There was some damage, that Vicky had to die. But I mean, if she had a gun, she was going to die anyways. You know what I mean? And fucking, I guarantee you, if there wasn't a newborn baby, she probably would have had a fucking gun in her hand. You know what I mean? She was just as batshit crazy as Randy. All these people were fucking lunatics, and they created their own demise. They almost wanted this to happen. They'd been, with all their shit earlier, getting into the end of days shit like that, like the Zog. You know what I mean? They felt like this was the new world order coming into them. They'd bought, and so that's what it's so dangerous to get into that shit. I hate people that get into this conspiracy theory bullshit, because it's like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like, this new world order shit really irritates me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize, people listening, and I apologize to you, Brad, for getting so worked up about this.
All right. It's first of all, getting into Amway, and oh god, that guy's a nut. Just getting into Amway and all that craziness, talking about, the Bible's all literal. I don't know. Like, just running around doing that stuff. I'm sure a lot of doctors or whatever could argue that that's just self-destructive behavior. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But nobody deserves to die for selling a gun. That's the thing. You deserve to go to jail.
Yeah, but you don't get to just keep telling him to fuck off and not go to jail.
Right. I see what you're saying. It's a fucking crazy world. Anyway, this fucking Waco thing, fucking, That guy's in there banging 14-year-olds, stuck, running a cult. All cults are fun. Cults are all fun and games until the guy in charge says that he's the only one who gets to bang all the wives. And then it becomes, okay, this is weird. It becomes a huge problem.